But what I want to talk about today is we've had a lot of catastrophes and natural disasters happening around the world, basically, and from the earthquakes to the hurricanes, and there's still more to come. And we just got done with tornado, alley stuff happening, and there a lot of people will step in and help kind of take the dogs, and we've had a lot here in Utah that went down and pulled out of the shelters and stuff like that were being flooded from the hurricane. We don't really talk about and don't really see a lot of earthquake stuff just yet, even though here in Utah there's one yet to come in the next 100 years, who knows.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of earthquakes actually happening, and I had family up in Montana go through a pretty major earthquake while they were at their cabin, and it was amazing to hear them stop and kind of describe what the dogs were doing when it started, and how things kind of happened, and how the dogs were actually the calm and the strength in the earthquake, growling uncertainty, but they were like, we just got to stay safe, and that really was their two dogs' mentality is, and they stopped for a minute. They didn't get overly obsessed about the dogs and we got to keep them safe. We don't know what's happening, and they were, I think, like 8 miles away from the fault, the actual quake. So it was a good one for them. But obviously they're family members, and we've kind of talked through a lot with that stuff. But the things that I see out there, from watching things on the news, is us being more worried about, that our dogs are worried about what's happening. And what we should do and what we should think is they're really kind of raw animals, and they have a natural ability to seek safety if we allow it. We're the ones that hold back. We're the ones that probably do more damage to our animals than we might lose them, but as far as like physically lose them. But we do have the abilities to have things in place to be able to find them again, from avid chips to having tags on them to having a tracker. I mean, they've got great tracking devices nowadays. And so I think it's important to really talk about and share, are there things that we can do to prepare our animals for us as human beings, kind of more our worrisome things, and what are we going to do with the dog or the cat, or even the livestock and all of that. So Michelle, what's kind of some of your input on kind of how we should be with our animals when a major catastrophe happens?
I think we should be honest with them. It is a stressful situation. We're stressed.
Yeah.
We should acknowledge that they're stressed as well. But that being said, it's something that we're all having to go through,
right,
and we're just going to have to get through it together.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Melissa, do you feel a sense of fear of like losing, not dying, but losing Cooper in the midst of chaos if you were put within that?
Of course.
Yeah.
That's always a concern. But I think at the same time I need to trust Cooper, and she's smart,
Yeah.
and I need to give her credit that she wants to survive too.
Yeah.
And if I'm so worried about coddling her and, are you going to be okay, it's going to freak her out more.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's such a hard emotion to let go of, but in those situations, you're in survival mode. You're in such a weird state of mind. I've been in the beginnings of a hurricane down in Texas, and man, it's such a different, eerie feel. That what do you do? And when you're not used to being in that, then it definitely shifts. But I think that there's some things that we can do to help our dogs feel, one, safe. I guess safe isn't the right answer. To help our dogs feel comfortable in the situations that's going to happen in the aftermath of it all. So as we're in the midst of natural disasters, or even a house fire for that matter, I mean, you get out, You know, what's your plan? What's the overall goal? Because some of your places, your base camps that they set up aren't going to allow the dogs to come in. And so what is that plan, and are you comfortable of opening the doors and letting your dog survive and hope that you can find them? Because that's what's going to happen. And so people are going to come in and help. They're going to come in and help and gather and find, and so some things that we can teach our dogs, and we're going to shoot some videos on starting that training process, is when we act weird and strange and scared, they're going to kick in and be the strength. And those dogs down in Texas and the animals in Florida, as I'm watching from a trainer's perspective, they're not afraid of, the dogs are not afraid of the water and surviving. It's just kind of something that's very natural to them. It's that, how often do we pick up an 80-pound German Shepherd to get them onto a boat or get them onto, the helicopter that's lifting them up? Never. We don't think about that. How often do we get under the table with our dogs? Pretty much never. Our kids maybe do when they're playing with them, right? But how often do we do that? How often do we go stand in the middle, for earthquakes? How often do if an earthquake happened right now, where would we go? What would we do? And do you go to those places and make them, your dog, feel safe? That it's not a time to play. It's not it's like, wow, this is really strange. This is where we go. This is what we do, so that they know that when we go there, it's a time of settling point, and it's a time of okay, this is what we need to do. I don't think that everybody really knows, what they're supposed to do in a catastrophe. We want to believe that we're prepared, and there's all kinds of things out there to be prepared, but we don't take the time to train our dogs to be prepared for what's going to happen. It's not the activity of itself. It's we are getting under that table right now. And what does that look like? So we're gonna go into that. And Michelle, Melissa, what other things do you guys have to share as far as just catastrophes and things that you think about with your dogs?
First thing that comes to my mind is emergency recall.
Mm-hmm.
So if something does happen and you're panicked and you're yelling your dog's name, are they going to come if it's in a panicked voice?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of getting them used to that, not being like, come here, like a happy come, because at that moment you're not going to have a happy recall.
Yeah.
But if they respond to you even in times of stress.
Sure, that's good.
Something I was thinking about is everything that you were talking about. Of course, my dogs are not prepared for that, because you can't.
Right.
You can't, and there's no way to actually. I'm not prepared for that in the sense of like my mental well-being and stuff.
Yep.
But it just drives home to me how important dog training is. Like how important training is, because everything you said, I'm like, actually, yeah, my dogs could do that. It might not, in real life, might not look exactly like jumping into a boat, but Murphy has been picked up to be put into a truck. Or, I mean, and it did take time to get him comfortable with doing stuff like that. Restraint downs. I mean, it really is, so it just drives home to me how important training your dog is.
Yeah. And
In any
constantly
situation.
doing it,
Exactly, yeah. Even at 6, 10, how old my dogs are, like still
Right.
doing those things
Right.
every day.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we forget that, and I'm guilty of it. And so we're going to shoot some video of the 3 dogs that you've got everybody seen running around. We're going to shoot some video on teaching what that is, and they're going to be emotional. My German Shepherds are emotional. They're going to be vocal about some things that we're going to do, but they really need to feel it. They need to understand that you're not going to die. Just, you're going to be scared, but you're not going to die. And so it's important that we demonstrate that and show. And you're right, Michelle, recall, your training, your just everyday training, because I really feel like overall, if something happened right now, I would have to grab the young puppy, but my 2 will stick with me. If we need to get to the middle of the road, we need to get out of here, of this yard, I'm not going to have to worry about where are my dogs, because they're going to stick with me. And so I think that's another big piece is be with me, stick with me, it's stressful, let's get through this together, be with me, and be okay with it. So definitely all training aspects are good. And then what are those one-offs that we can help them be a little bit more successful? Because when the initial, for example, the initial earthquake hits, you know, if you're in bed and the earthquake hits, you should stay in bed. Like, people get up and like look outside and want to know what's going on. You should stay in bed. Because, and so then our dogs are never allowed on the bed, but maybe you should get your dogs on the bed too. And so, Yancey, go. And so, is that a one-off situation where once a year you put your dogs in bed with you in this, hurry, get up here, everybody here, and like hunker down and be there, and then they never feel that again? I'm not saying do it on a regular basis, or your dogs will be sleeping on their beds if you're not. But maybe that is something that we need to set up more often. Of what are these funny little things that we could maybe say, if we're in bed, this is what we want to do. If we're here, this is what we want to do. You know, they say, you know, if you're in the house and an earthquake starts, you need to get to a corner. You need to get under something. You need to, you know, but don't just stay in the middle of your kitchen. You need to get to a corner. You need to get, you know, someplace that if everything's falling down around you, that corner is going to be more stable than anything else. In a flooding situation, and the hurricane and all of that, boy, it's best to just let your dog make sure your gates are open. That's the best advice that I can say, because they will get to safety. They will move and get there faster than we can. And trust your dog at that point. And maybe it's a follow. Maybe it's a, you know, go with your gut and go, you're in charge now. I'm going to trust you and go. But too many times dogs get stuck. I mean, if they're stuck in the house or they're stuck in the yard, that's a hard position for a dog to be in versus I'm going to open the gates and I'm just going to hope that I see you again. And it's a better situation for your animals. You have to let go of that selfishness and say, I want you to survive because we're going to do what we need to do to survive. Evacuate with your dogs. Make sure that you have family or friends that are outside of that danger zone that you can at least maybe drop your dogs off to, even if you're not going to stay there, that there's a safe place for them. So being prepared is an important piece. But if your dogs aren't used to going to other places, if your dogs are not well behaved, and you're going to dump, yeah, of course they're going to help you. But it's much less stressful if your dogs are trained and behaved, that you can say, grab a crate, put them in the crate, they'll be fine, they're going to be safe, I'm going to, you know, be here. So it's important to have that plan, but prepare your dogs for it as well. So let's get on to the next session of, you know, how do we train that, what does that look like, and break it down.